And your firm now today is known very much for, or it very much has a rooftop focus today. But let's say a decade ago, did it start out that way? Did it have the same sort of clarity and mission around it, or completely different back then?
Yeah, so the mission was to have a business that made money, right? And that like
Yeah.
maintained. So it was whatever relationships we had. I kind of use the analogy, cast a wide net and see what fish you bring back in, right? If you were fishing. And so we took everything, right? We were just generalists. We were looking at things, any project, any opportunity, we were open to it and excited to work on it, right? And so through that, we got all sorts of different types of projects. And through that process, did a couple rooftops with some developers who were like, hey, there's nothing interesting about some rooftop projects we've done. We've got another one here. We'd love you to look at it. And so we were able to just do something interesting because what we saw was and they acknowledged, they're like, this is the most boring. It's just basically concrete and a few chairs and a
Mm.
fire pit, a few planters. And it was very underwhelming. And so we put something together. We just took a big risk, put something together, put it in 3D, and they were just like, this is awesome. We should do it, you know? And so it kind of opened my eyes. I was like, this is a really fun way, a fun space, kind of a scary space, because I think a lot of landscape architects get afraid of like, I think we're all probably afraid, at least in the architecture and construction world, of being liable for things, right? Like
Right.
we're taking a lot of risk when we design, and then you put that on top of a building, and you're thinking there's a lot of issues that could arise from not understanding how to design on a building. You're putting water, you're putting soil, you're putting heavy objects. So I think that shot a lot of people away. So we were able to do something creative, and I thought this is a creative space. It allows us to do we have to be really creative because every square inch counts on these rooftops because they're fairly small, right? Depending on the project. So that was kind of the aha of like, oh wow, this could be really a really cool space to work in. And so fast forward a couple more years, we got another opportunity within those years to do kind of a game changer project for that kind of set a new standard for Salt Lake, it was called Fourth West Apartments. And it ended up being about an acre of rooftop space over a parking structure
Oh
with
wow.
500 unit development. And so we got to design and move, and working with the developer, they were really interested in creative. They allowed us a lot of freedom, and it just clicked. It just made sense. It was just fun. And I thought this has legs. Like if there are more opportunities like this, I'm probably more interested in these types of spaces
Mm.
than anything else. And
Mm.
mostly for the reason that I think what our secret sauce really is our creativity, our desire to like do something truly unique. And that, it almost sounds trite to say that, because what designer doesn't want to do something really creative and should be separated by their creativity? But it's always what we've been hired for. We tend to be a little more expensive, but our creativity is the thing that resonates through all the projects as they hire us, because we're more creative, let's say, than the standard landscape architect. And so you marry that, and then also understanding a little bit of marketing and going, okay, at this point, like this was a few years into the business, it was, we need to figure out who we are. Like Loft 6 4, what do we represent? What's a focus? What's a positioning that we could take in the market, whether it's expertise? I knew enough that I didn't want to be a generalist, and just
Mm.
thought, okay, is there something that we could own that Loft 6 4 could truly be known for? And so hired a marketing group and invested a lot with them in 2017 to and that's where we started exploring rooftop amenities. And they asked the question, if you guys were to put your whole business on the line for this rooftop amenities, what percentage of projects would you say you have that are rooftop amenities? And it was a great question, because it was like, we really don't have, we have a few, right? But if we had to stake our business on being successful through just rooftop amenity projects, we couldn't have done it. So it
Mm.
took a couple years of us they wrote weekly blog posts on rooftop amenities to where that's all anyone identified us as. And so the thing that they did really well was just ingrain it so consistently that on Facebook, on LinkedIn, on, you know, everything, to the point where my family was like, is this all you guys talk about? Like, we want to see some personal
Right.
stuff on your Facebook. And I was like, I think people are getting it, you know, like rooftop amenities. And so it was also this cool thing where they stopped talking about us being landscape architects and going, yeah, I got a brother-in-law that does landscaping. Or they always just misunderstood. You hear landscape architecture and people are always like, oh yeah, I got a brother-in-law that does that, or must be hot in the summers, or can you diagnose my tree or my plants, you know? And that difference alone was amazing. The fact I didn't have to explain, people just kind of were like more excited too, like rooftop amenities. That sounds interesting, you know, like you do cool spaces on rooftops. Like that's awesome. And through those years, by being known more for that, or at least like positioning ourselves that way, we started to get more of those types of projects. And that was obviously our focus too, was like, how do we make a flip happen? So let's say when we started that positioning, let's say we had 20% of our business would be from rooftops. In 2018, 2019 is where it kind of flipped. And we were like, holy cow, most of our projects are actually rooftops now.
Mm,
And people are hiring us specifically for that. And they were also paying us more
mm.
because they saw us as meaningfully different.